New Jersey Devils team reporter Sam Kasan accompanied me on today's episode as we hear his thoughts and opinions on the 2023-2024 season and also the global series in which the Devils will travel to Czechia to take on the Buffalo Sabres. There's a lot to break down with Sam. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, Devils writer for Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. Joining me on today's episode to share his thoughts and opinions on the 2023-2024 Devils season is none other than Sam Kasan, team reporter for New Jersey. You might hear his voice quite frequently throughout New Jersey Devils television alongside Amanda Stein and Catherine Bogart. Sam, both of them have appeared on my show. It's been a long time coming, but we finally got you on my show, Locked On Devils.
Yeah, I would prefer to be number one in the pecking order, but don't worry, I won't take offense. I'll look over it.
It's all good. I don't sometimes it just happens. But I've been wanting to get you on the show for over a year now, and finally it comes into fruition. All right, before we jump into the questions I have lined up, I asked this question to Catherine. I asked this question to Amanda. Where did hockey begin for you, and how did it lead you to New Jersey?
Yeah, well, I grew up for those who might not know my background, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, home of obviously the Pittsburgh Penguins. And when I was 8 years old was when they won their first Stanley Cup. So, of course, being a young kid, they were the talk of the town. They were the joy and celebration of the town. So that kind of obviously piqued my interest. And then I think like most kids, you look up to the older kids in the neighborhood. And at that time, all the older kids wanted to be Penguins. And they were all playing hockey. It was street hockey. So I just started playing street hockey with bunch of the older kids, in the neighborhood. And from there, I went to my first ever game was in the 92 playoffs. It was the 93 playoffs. And ironically, it was against the New York Islanders, and Tom Fitzgerald was a member of that team, which would go on to upset the Penguins, which sucked. But the game I got to see was a 3-0 victory for the Penguins. And from that moment, I was just hooked forever. I played it obviously because they were winning. I watched it just casually because they were winning. It was fun. I was young. But when I went to that first game, that changed everything for me. That's when I was like, I want to be a hockey player. I want all things hockey. And then I joined leagues and I got more involved, got a pair of skates, got on the ice, started doing all that stuff. And at some point, I obviously knew I wasn't going pro, as we all know. But I also thought, the next best thing in being around the game was, watching the media guys that covered the sport and these people that covered it for the newspapers. I know your audience might not know what a newspaper is, but it's this piece of paper that used to have recaps of games and whatnot from way back in the day.
Are those
so I was like, maybe I could do something like that. And so I followed a media path that led me eventually in the PR realm, which I bounced around from leagues, started in the NFL actually with the Pittsburgh Steelers, went to the Green Bay Packers, NFL Europe, the Atlanta Falcons, then eventually landed with the Pittsburgh Penguins, was there for 12 years. And then after 12 years there, I joined the New Jersey Devils 4 seasons ago. This will be my 5th season and haven't looked back since. So love the staff here. I was with Tom Fitzgerald in Pittsburgh. So we I don't want to say we came up together, but in my, young days, he was there. He was around, very influential, and we formed a good friendship and a good bond. And when the opportunity arose that the Devils could be hiring, he's the first person I'd reached out to. So, and he gave me his backing, and, the rest, as they say, is history. So here we are.
Awesome. And a few years later, you've witnessed some interesting things. Last year, the Devils had a historic season. Unfortunately, this past season, things didn't really go according to plan. Could you recap the 2023-2024 season from your perspective, and what did you notice?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, 2 years ago, the 2022 season, 23, I mean, it was a remarkable season in every aspect. 52 wins, 112 points, 10-game winning streak. It was every record-breaking thing you can think of. And the biggest difference from that year to last season was injuries. Now, every team deals with injuries. They're not an excuse, but they are a factor. They do have an impact on the team. And when you look at the big four, Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Dougie Hamilton, Jesper Bratt, in that record-breaking season, those four players combined missed 5 total games. So Jack Hughes missed 4, Nico missed 1, Dougie and Bratter played every single game. Last year, Jack missed 20 games. Dougie, of course, missed basically the entire season, missed 62, and then Nico missed 10, 11, 12, something like that. Jesper Bratt did play every game, but still, the big four, they go from missing 5 total games to over 90 games lost. It's an entire season. I would even add into that mix Timo Meier, who did miss 10 games himself. But even when he was playing, he had tears in both his MCLs, had a shoulder issue he was dealing with, and just wasn't the same player. And you could see it on the ice; he just didn't have it. So really, a lot of the times he was playing, he just wasn't nearly 100%. And still, that being said, he finished with 28 goals on the year, and 17 of those goals came after March 1st. So as you could see, as he got healthy and better, more conditioned, then you could see the real Timo Meier. So really, they played most of the season without Dougie, without Jack, without Timo, and Spurs without Nico. So injury certainly a factor. The young D-core was another thing. And I think they knew going into last year they weren't going to win 52 games. They weren't going to win 112 points because they were going to take a step, if you will, one step backward on the defensive side because they were losing Ryan Graves and Damon Severson. But the idea was you take one step backwards and take 3 leaps forward as Luke Hughes, Kevin Ball, Shimon Nemeth get the experience they need as young players. And so there was going to be some rookie mistakes, as there was. There was going to be some growing pains and learning curves, as there was. And then I think what really hurt them was losing Dougie Hamilton, losing the minutes that he eats. Now, all of a sudden, Luke Hughes has to play. I mean, he was getting top power play minutes, but now he's going to play 20, 22, 25 minutes a game. Now, Shimon Nemeth, who's only 20 years old, he's coming in. He's playing 18, 19 minutes a game. They're asking a lot of these neophyte players on the blue line. And so they made the mistakes that you'd expect them to make and bigger roles than they probably were ready for. But again, 1 step forward, 3 steps back. You could see at the end of the year they were getting better. They were coming. I mean, Luke Hughes ended up being 3rd in the Calder rookie voting. So for the National Hockey League, and Shimon Nemeth was, I would argue, their most consistent. I wouldn't say best, but most consistent defenseman toward the end of the year. So you could see the progression forward in that end. And then the other thing that kind of sank them was just the goaltending with Vitek, Vanacek, and Akira Schmid. Vitek is, all goaltenders base everything on confidence. Every player, confidence is a big factor, but the goaltending, the confidence is the factor. I remember a goaltending coach once told me the goaltending position is 50% positioning, 50% reaction, and 100% mental. Because the mental aspect of the position is just beyond comparison to even the other situations. If you play 6-8 minutes and just aren't as confident, you might not contribute in certain ways. But if you're a goalie and you're not on your game, that's could be the difference between winning a game and losing a game. And for Vitek, his confidence is everything as him as a player. And 2 seasons ago, he was having a stellar season. He was the player of the month for November in the National Hockey League, and then started to dip a little bit. And of course, we all saw what happened against the New York Rangers. And I think that really kind of crushed his confidence. I think the team was hoping a summer working with a mental sports psychologist would help him going into last year. And again, they knew things would be even tougher because he does have that young defensive core in front of him. So they needed him to kind of make up and clean up some of their mistakes. And at times he could, at times he couldn't. And then there was just kind of this snowball effect where things led into each other, where sometimes it was on the goaltending, sometimes it was on the defense. But either way, it ends up with a goal in the back of your net, and it's hard to overcome those things. And it's not like Tom Fitzgerald didn't try to address the goaltending issue. He tried all season long, essentially. He tried to get Jake Allen months before they eventually got Jake Allen. And the thing with goaltending, too, is there's 32 teams in the National Hockey League that are all looking for goalies, whether it's a starting goalie, a backup goalie, adding to your depth. No team is satisfied with their goaltending depth because there's not a lot of great quality goaltenders around the league. So every team is looking to add. Tom Fitzgerald was one of those guys, and they don't fall out of coconut trees. You got to go out there and get them. You got to make deals, and eventually he finally got Jake Allen, and then I'm sure we'll obviously talk about Jacob Markstrom too. But I think the thing to think about and consider here is the team that won 52 games and had 112 points 2 years ago. The nucleus of that team is still in the dressing room. You still got Jack, you still got Nico, you still got Dougie, still got Bratter, Timo's still there, and now the healthy Timo, and with Jacob Markstrom, I think the sky could be the limit for this team. So when you look at franchises, I think last year certainly was a quote-unquote step back, but I don't think it was. The trajectory is still moving forward, and the trajectory is still high for this team.
Before we continue with today's episode with Sam, let me tell you guys about FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up any bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to fanduel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Visit fanduel.com to look at the odds, and please remember to always gamble responsibly. Okay, let's get back to our discussion with Devils team reporter Sam Kasan. Take it away once again. Absolutely. And I didn't know that about Vitek, that he was speaking to someone to help with his confidence a little bit. I know Chico told me about Vitek's confidence and things like that. So but I didn't know the organization did that in order to try to help him in that sort of way. That's actually an interesting factoid. You talked about how sometimes you have to take a step backwards to take 3 leaps forward. And here comes the offseason. And Tom Fitzgerald said he wanted to go big game hunting. And he added more experience on the back end in Brett Pesce and Brendan Dillon. He adds more depth in Stefan Nason, Paul Cotter. He gets Jacob Markstrom. He also gets a new head coach, someone who actually saw great success in Toronto, in Sheldon Keefe. Basically, can you share your thoughts on the offseason moves and what does each new player bring to the table? Does someone stick out in your opinion?
Well, just looking at the big picture, I'll start looking at the collective. The New Jersey Devils are a better team right now than they were a month ago, 2 months ago, a year ago. I would even say 2 years ago when they had that magical run. And one of the things that stuck out to me in locker room cleanout day was speaking with Andre Palat. You might have even been in this conversation, but I was speaking with Andre Palat, and he was talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning and how that was a franchise that kind of was always 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You know, they would get a conference final, then a first round exit, Stanley Cup final loss, second round exit. They were always kind of like teetering. And when things really clicked for them was in 2018-2019 season. They won 62 games and tied an NHL record, like for the 62 wins. And then in the postseason, they got bounced in the first round in 4 games, swept by Columbus. And he talked about how that was the turning point because they got together as a team. They said, you know what we did and the way we played, that was great in the regular season. And it won us 62 games. We literally tied the NHL record, of course, since passed by Boston. But it didn't translate to success in the postseason. And so they revamped their style, went a little more defensive edged, got a little more grittier. And so they did things that would give them success in the postseason. And then, of course, they ended up winning back-to-back the next 2 years. And so I think what Tom Fitzgerald did is kind of on par with that. We went out, he wanted to make this team harder to play against. So he wanted them to be grittier, tougher, nastier. He wanted to have that element. So I think all those players add a little bit to that element. You know, first of all, with a Brendan Dillon and a Brett Pesce, those are, they're veterans. So it's a very young core. So you're surrounding them now with some veteran guys that have been around the league for quite a few seasons, have been around successful teams, looking at the Dallases and the Carolinas. So they know how to win. And, Brendan Dillon adds all that nastiness, the physicality, the toughness. He's going to make it hard for players to get to the crease. He's going to make you pay. You're going to be punished if you get there. And Brett Pesce, another guy, he's not as physical. He's not going to throw as many big hits, but he's just as gritty as can be. He's going to block a ton of shots. He's going to get into the dirty areas. He's going to be physical along the boards. He's not going to shy away from contact. And even a Jonathan Kovacevic, who is more of a 7th round or 7th D man kind of guy, a big guy, 6'5", physical. So he kind of fills those voids. And then at the forward lineup, adding the Nasons and the Cotters, again, just adding that grit, that toughness, that nastiness. Those are the players you need. To win a Stanley Cup, sure, you need like the Patrick Eliashes. You also need the Mike Rupps. You need those gritty 3rd line, 4th line guys that can do the dirty work down low, that can get in on the forecheck. And Stefan Nason's one of the best in the league, I would say, at doing that. And Paul Cotter, a young guy that has a lot of potential to do the same. And no doubt the biggest acquisition, though, all those guys, Jacob Markstrom. I mean, solving the goaltending has been a never-ending battle for the organization when you talk about just being haunted, going back to Corey Crawford and Jonathan Bernier, and seeing like everything this franchise tried to do to address the goaltending issue just blew up in their face, just the worst luck you could possibly think of. So finally they have a bona fide #1 goaltender, a guy that can steal games. And when you look at all the analytics, he was a top 5 goaltender in the league last year on a pretty bad Calgary team. a veteran's been around, 34 years old. He's got the experience. So they finally solved that problem. And I think I speak for a lot of people when we would look at this team and we would always wonder, man, there's so much potential here. If they had a legit bona fide number one goalie, what is the possibility for this franchise? So now we have that is answered. So now we'll find out what that answer will be and how he can do. And then, as you mentioned, new bench boss, Sheldon Keefe, and speaking with a lot of the Toronto media, because when the deal obviously went down, I reached out to a lot of members of the media in Toronto, trying to get some background on what they thought of him, and nothing but praise from all the members of the media in Toronto. And as you know, Canadian media, Toronto media in particular, they're very harsh when it comes to their outlooks on players, coaches, everything. So for them to be daunting the praise and Sheldon Keefe, I thought that spoke volumes to him and his abilities. Obviously been a winner everywhere he's been. Now he's in a lot of similar situations. He had a high octane offensive team, just needed some more veterans on D, needed kind of a better goaltender. Sam Kasan was not the answer there. And now he's got a team that has that same high octane offense, got the veteran D, and he's got the goaltender. So I think he's in a situation where he's probably fielding the best team that he's ever had too. So I'm really excited to see what he can do with this group.
And someone I didn't mention, Tomas Tatar, and I was talking to Christy Flannery of the Hockey News, and I think I speak for a lot of Devils media. We love interacting with Tomas Tatar. We love what he does pregame with soccer and all of them. He takes it very serious, as Amanda has said on social media. I think we all love a good reunion, and getting Nason and Tatar back, I think it really speaks volume as to what New Jersey is right now, and those players wanting to come back and be a part of something special. And like you said, this Devils team has improved in more ways than one. And I interacted with you in Las Vegas during the NHL draft, and unfortunately I couldn't make it back for development camp. But let's talk about the even further future for the Devils. What were your thoughts on the NHL draft, and did you notice anything from development camp a few days later? I know they were piled on one another, and it was a very hectic, but could you share your thoughts on both events?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just to touch on too, Tomas Tatar, as you did, took less money to play. The New Jersey Devils wants to be here. Players taking decent contracts because they want to be in New Jersey. They see what's here. They see the potential here. And for Tatar, you loved interacting with him. Well, so do his teammates, so do his coaches. He's a great team guy, a favorite in the locker room, a versatile guy, can play up and down the lineup. So another great addition, helps with the depth, helps with leadership. So, and obviously from a media standpoint, we love having him back. As far as the draft, I mean, Tom Fitzgerald said it best when they were sitting there and the 10th pick was dropping and dropping and dropping. And that one name, Anton Saleyev, kept dropping and dropping and dropping. And when Tom Fitzgerald's like, what are we going to do with this pick? And assistant general manager Dan McKinnon said, hey, we're taking the D, man. He's 6'7", he skates like crazy, and he's mean. It's like, all right, let's take the D. And he was the top-rated defenseman on the Devils board. In the second round, they trade up to get Mikhail Yegorov, the top-rated goaltender on the board. So right off the bat, if you get the number one D and the number one goalie off your board, I think you're doing pretty well as far as the draft is concerned. The one thing that stood out to me is looking at all the picks. The Devils end up making 7 selections. Of those 7, 6 of them are 6'3" and up. And almost all of them are over 200 pounds. I mean, Saleyev, of course, 6'7", 230. Who also played in the KHL at 17 years old. I'll go back.
For reference for anyone, if Saleyev was on the team right now, he'd be the tallest player on the roster. He, in terms of forwards, in terms of defensemen, goaltenders, he'd be the tallest player.
Absolutely. And then just get him on skates.
I didn't even factor that in.
So of the 7 guys they drafted, 6 of them were over 6'3", almost 200 pounds. I think all of them but one. And then the other guy was 6'2". So size clearly something they addressed. Now maybe it just kind of fell that way to them. Sometimes that happens in the draft, but clearly size was an emphasis that they were looking at. And speaking of Saleyev, you mentioned it, 6'7", skates like a ballerina, which is what one scout told me. The way he works his edges, and actually if you fans here are listening, if you go to NewJerseyDevils.com on Friday, you'll see a little report I'll have written up for you on Saleyev. But skates incredible. His edge work, his cutting, his transition, his stop speed, agility, acceleration. Like, you just don't see a guy that's 6'7" and 230 plus able to skate that way very often. I mean, I don't want to throw any, the Victor Hedmans and the Zdeno Chars. I don't want to put any kind of pressure on him. Those are some of the guys that you see that have that ability. Obviously, would love to see him reach that potential, but Played in the KHL last year at 17 years old. And I think the biggest thing, again, is he is mean. He's nasty. He's gritty. Sometimes crosses that line, which is, I think, what the Devils want and what they like. And it's in his DNA. Like he was asked at development camp, if that he was coached that way, if he was taught that way. He's like, no, it's just who I am. So it's just part of who he is. It's hard to teach toughness, if you will. You can teach a lot of things. Toughness is it's either inherent. You either got it or you don't. He's got it. And I think it helped him at 17 years old playing in the KHL, a professional league. A young kid was able to handle himself very well. And, again, the sky's the limit. He'll be there for 2 more years. He's got a 2-year deal. At that point, obviously things will be reevaluated and we'll see where he ends up going. He'll marinate over there for a little bit. But when he does get here, fans are going to love him immediately. He's going to be throwing big checks. He's going to be nasty. And you can even see in his face, like he's got a baby face. Like, he still has so much room to grow. Like, he's going to get bigger. He's going to get stronger. He's going to get even more nasty. So a great pickup there. And Yegorov, if he pans out as a goaltender, like, again, if you can get the number 1 goaltender in the draft, the number 1 goaltender on your board, again, he's going to be quite a few years away. Goaltenders take 4, 5, 6 years to develop. So he's probably years away, but then you're looking down the line, you've got Markstrom right now. You've got some veteran guys, Jake Allen right now, but you're kind of setting the path where you're good now, but you're also building in throughout the future. So I think the Devils addressed a lot of things in the draft, and I was really excited for the class.
Absolutely. And we spoke to Herman Traff and Kasper Pikkarainen at their media availability shortly after being selected. And they both described their games as physical. They like to forecheck. They like to play aggressive. Pikkarainen's father had a brief stint with the Devils over 10 years ago. I think the name of the game for Devils was definitely to add more size in free agency or in the trade market, and to also draft that, because I think there's only a few players on the Devils roster that are under 6 feet. I can't name them off the top of my head, but it's not many, just putting that out there. And let's just talk about the upcoming season, the 2024-2025 season. How excited are you for this Devils team, and what do you think Devils fans can expect with this new product?
Yeah, like I said, as you just said, they got tougher, they got stronger, they got nastier. And the key here is they got harder to play against. It's not going to be a cakewalk when you play the New Jersey Devils anymore. You're going to have to earn your ice. You're going to have to earn your opportunities. You're going to have to earn your scoring chances. They've made it that much harder to play against them as a team. So, and I kind of said it before, but I think the current lineup is better, obviously, than last year. And I think it's better than the team that won 52 games and had 112 points because they are harder to play against. That doesn't mean they're going to win 52 games. Doesn't mean they're going to win 112 points, kind of like what Andre Palat said. Yeah, they won 62 games, but then they got swept in the playoffs. This team right now is built for a playoff run. Obviously, you got to get to the playoffs. That's the first step, is earning that playoff berth. But once they get there, I think this team is built more for a playoff competition, for a playoff run, with the grittiness, with the style, than the previous 2 inclinations. Now, obviously, injuries going to be major factors. They are every year. The team's got to stay healthy. I think they've improved their depth so that if there are injuries, they do have some sustainability. And if they are more shored up on the defensive side and in the goaltending, as they should be with Markstrom and these additions, then I think they can withstand some of those injuries a little better than they were last year. But the key takeaway here is, too, this team's still going to be fun to watch. The offense is still there. You still got Jack Hughes, who's worth the price of admission. People pay to see him play for a reason. You got, Nico Hischier, who was a Selke nominee, 30 goals, 80 points, one of the best two-way forwards in the National Hockey League. Timo Meier, I think, could be a 40-goal scorer again if he can, again, healthy. Injuries is always the X factor. Jesper Bratt continues every year to get better and better. Dougie Hamilton's back, full, healthy Dougie Hamilton on the blue line. You get Luke Hughes taking a jump forward, Shimon Nimitz, on and on and on. This team's going to be fun to watch. They're going to be electric. They're going to be exciting. But they're going to be better defensively. They're going to be better in the goaltending position. And I think it's going to translate to better, obviously, results. But I think in the long run, this team is built for a playoff run. So then you got to get to the playoffs. But I think this team right now is better than they have been maybe in the last 6, 7, 8 years.
And adding more to the excitement, final question. The Devils will start their 2024-2025 season in Czechia, which is where Andre Palat is from. And they're going to take on Lindy Ruff and the Buffalo Sabres in the NHL's Global Series. I haven't asked anyone this question yet, so you're the first. But how excited are you for the Global Series, and what does it mean for New Jersey fans or just hockey fans in general to see this product be taking across the ocean?
Oh, I'm extremely excited. Obviously, it's a unique, once-in-a-lifetime experience. It's not every team. I know the Devils did it a couple years ago, but not every team gets to participate in games like this, especially and even looking at the Stadium Series last year, the Devils were one of the teams that the NHL has hit. And I think what it says is New Jersey hockey is back. It's back on the map, and it's not just local. Obviously, Devils fans have always been around, but now the national interest is there. Big names are there. The entire hockey world wants to watch the New Jersey Devils. That's why they're selected for these global series. That's why they're selected to do the Stadium Series last year. And I think as an organization, as a team, and as a fan base, they should be proud of that. They should be proud that this team is a marquee team in the National Hockey League, that people want to see them. They are a major draw. They're filling football stadiums. They're going to fill, obviously, Prague. Like I said, only so many teams get selected for these endeavors. There's a reason the Devils were picked for this. So I think as an organization, they'd be proud. It's an honor to be selected for situations like this. And in some way, they earned it. I mean, it was a lot of patience. There was a lot of growth. There was a lot of pain in the rebuild. And those are the things you go through. But this is the payoff. This is when you start to really see the fruits of those labors come to fruition. So, again, I think fans should be proud of it. It's a great honor for this team to participate. And it's the fruits of the labor and all the things they went through to get built back up to where they are now. And as I said, it really speaks to me and what says to me nationally, worldwide, New Jersey Devils hockey is back.
You said it best, Sam. I couldn't have said it any better. The Devils are back, and I think that's why fans are so excited for this upcoming season. We talked about everything. We talked about this past season. We talked about their offseason. We talked about their future, including playing in Czechia. Where can my audience find you at? Do you want to plug any social medias or any recent work you might be doing?
Yeah, I mean, right now our content team, obviously, NewJerseyDevils.com. That's our main base. It's where you'll see all my writing, Amanda, Catherine, all our video hits. Everything we do is based there. Follow the Devils social media for all social media content. And I will say we are planning a lot of great stuff. We're still in the process of, speaking of Czechia, we're still in the process of planning everything, but there's going to be a lot of great content to come out of that. We're going to make the most of that trip. We're going to try to do a lot of cool behind-the-scenes stuff with players, a lot of interactive, a lot of even getting around Prague and maybe Slovakia, if there's a tease there for Shimon Nemec. But so a lot of great stuff coming down the pike. So fans, please make sure you keep checking out NewJerseyDevils.com. Follow our social channels, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all the good things, or X, all the good things. Nothing but great coverage, I think, from our team. And I got to commend our team. You mentioned Amanda Stein, Catherine Bogart, even Mark Ciampa, kind of the nameless leader, if you will, of all of us. So everyone does a great job chipping in all facets. So we're really excited about covering this team. And again, sky's the limit for this team. And we're hoping that our coverage meets the same expectations as the teams.
Awesome. Sam, thank you for taking the time to come on and talk all things Devils and what the future has in store. And like I do to close out every episode, continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thank you to my special guest stars, Sam, once again.